Preconception Care chat. So I'll just introduce myself while everyone's kind of joining in. I'm Pip, I'm a midwife, I'm a practicing midwife. I'm currently based on a high-risk delivery suite unit, but I've worked kind of everywhere in the past, wards and birth centres, etc. And I'm so excited to be able to talk to you all this evening about preconception health and preconception care, because I think it's kind of a subject area that's quite neglected, unfortunately, not always prioritised. So it's amazing that so many of you are joining. I'm so pleased. And please feel free, if you've got any questions along the way, just add in the comments, and I've got a handy assistant sat in the corner who will read them out as we go. So shall we kind of start? Before we go into the content, I'll just give you a little heads up. Anyone who stays to the end of the chat, on my own Instagram page, midwife_Pip, I'm going to be giving a little giveaway at the end, a little freebie up for grabs. So stay tuned to the end for information on that. Amazing, everyone's still joining, which is fantastic. So hopefully they'll be able to get loads of interesting stuff from this. And if you've got any questions afterwards, just drop me a message. I'm more than happy to answer anything. So let's just start off with what is preconception care. Not always kind of talked about. So it's kind of like a health passport. And it's a health and lifestyle and well-being check for both potential parents. Yes, both. So men, you are not off the hook. If you're a woman listening on your own and your man's available or in the other room, then go and get him now, get him involved. It's for the both of you. It's basically like a human MOT. So the things that preconception care looks at is maximising the health potentials of parents. In order to optimise your chance of conception, the maintenance of a nice healthy pregnancy, and to optimise and promote a healthy outcome for mums and babies. So with the goal of reducing morbidity and mortality for both mother and baby. The idea is we start to provide some information so that you can make informed choices about your pregnancy journey, and to evaluate for any need for genetic counselling and making referrals if they're necessary. And start to advise on discontinuing contraception. So, for example, the common contraceptive pill can interfere with your absorption of certain vitamins like zinc and vitamin B6. So ideally, we want to be trying to discontinue that pill 3 months prior to conception. So it might be, if you're planning for the far future, that we just start experimenting with different options or stopping it altogether. So aspects that preconception care will look at. So it's a big screening, lots of history taking, so things like your current health and nutrition status, your sexual health history, so including sexually transmitted infection history, any history of infertility problems or contraception, family history, medical and surgical history, mental health history, and also medication history, super important. There's some medications that when you're planning for pregnancy or becoming pregnant might need adjusting or changing because they can be tetragenic for babies. And occupational history. So some occupations expose you to environmental hazards, so looking at those, and also really important for the modern day world is stress management. So many people working really stressful jobs and conditions, so looking at ways of adapting and working through managing that. It'll also involve a physical examination. So for women, if you're not up to date, that'll be a smear test, really important, a cervical smear, urine testing and some blood tests. So blood tests will look at things like nutrient deficiencies, your thyroid function and how your kidneys and liver are functioning, blood pressure check and a sexual health screen, and also a BMI measurement. Now I am always cautious when we discuss BMI because it can be a really difficult area to discuss, but the idea is that we screen for people who are underweight or people who might be obese, because we know that a body fat percentage that is either too low or too high can be suboptimal to health. And although BMI can be quite a crude measurement, it's widely used because it's considered reasonable enough in terms of accuracy for the general population. Okay, so I don't think we've got any dying questions at the moment. Assistant in the corner, are we doing okay? Amazing, so I'll carry on. So who is preconception care for? Anyone. So any man and woman of childbearing age who thinks they might want to have a family, be it now, in the future, or in a few years' time. And I'm going to sound a little bit like a ranty midwife here, But get your partners involved. The responsibility really is joint, and it's not just on the woman who will hopefully go on to carry a baby. Men have such an important role to play in optimising the health of themselves and therefore the health of their future child. Now, almost half of pregnancies are actually unplanned, so being in a ready state of great health is really important to reduce risks of poor outcomes for pregnancy and also so many other illnesses and diseases. Now, for those planning, about 2 years is actually considered the golden time for maximising your health potential for preconception. But I appreciate for a lot of people that is way too long. So for those who don't want to wait 2 years, 6 months is fantastic. So if you can start to seek some preconception screening and health and care advice 6 months prior to a conception, that's brilliant. That gives time for any of those deficiencies or underlying issues to be identified and then rectified to optimise your chances of a great healthy conception and pregnancy. Now, preconception care is often considered in retrospect or considered to be aimed at those who are either struggling to get pregnant or who have had a compromised pregnancy outcome. And what I really, really hope we can encourage tonight is for people to view it early on as a priority and almost as like the part of your pregnancy journey before you actually conceive, because the power of it really is fantastic. Now, we know that good preconception health can lead to the adoption of longer term healthier lifestyles. And we also know from emerging evidence that the diet of a newborn in the first 6 to 18 months of life is one of the single biggest predictors for adulthood obesity. So as parents, adopting healthy habits early enables you to be a fantastic role model for your newborn going forwards. Now, the ideal is that we are at the peak of our health potential at the point of conception, but also in the 17 to 56 days following that. Now, this is the period where the early development of your baby starts to take place. And during this period, the cells start to divide off into 3 different layers, and these cells then go on to become your baby's organs and body parts. So it's a really important phase of your baby's development, and it's during this phase where the likelihood of abnormalities arising is at its highest, so it's so important. And that kind of leads us on quite nicely to discuss why preconception care is so important. And I know we've already started to allude to it, but it's really such a great thing. So the early development period of your baby starts at about 2.5 weeks. So that really early period, quite often you don't know you're pregnant at that time. We want our bodies to already be in that maximum health potential at that point to help with the development of our babies. And that's why planning, if possible, is fantastic. Now, it enables you to have an opportunity in that preconception period to become educated and informed. So, for example, we know that high caffeine consumption has been linked to both having a low birth weight baby and an increased risk of miscarriage. So there's a recommended daily limit of 200 milligrams of caffeine each day. Now, putting that into perspective, just 2 cups of coffee a day can reduce your conception rate by 27%. So if that's something that you're struggling with or concerned about, then caffeine's just a little area for you to look at. We also know that the supplementation of folic acid, so lots of preconception or pregnancy ladies will have heard of folic acid, and it's in most pregnancy vitamins and things, and we know that supplementing with that ideally 3 months before a conception is the best way of reducing the risk of neural tube defects in babies. So it's these kind of things that will be picked up in that preconception period to really stand you in the best stead going forwards. Exercise is also completely key. Now, it's best taken up prior to pregnancy and then maintained throughout pregnancy. And by starting it beforehand, you start to develop some confidence in your ability to exercise, and you start to realise that it can be done really safely. And although it might need to be adapted throughout, depending on what happens with your pregnancy and how your body responds, it's great to know that your body can do that. And we know that women that start exercising before pregnancy will manage to maintain it throughout much better. And then a really key component to preconception care is nutrition. There is a direct relationship between nutritional intake and pregnancy and child health, and that's been founded by the World Health Organization. So really important stuff. Infertility can be exacerbated by nutritional deficiencies, and having an inadequate preconception and antenatal nutrition can actually have adverse effects and increase complications for mums and babies. So things like preeclampsia, low birth weight babies, preterm infants can all come from a sort of nutritional history. Now, often in early pregnancy, so that kind of first trimester, nutrition can be suboptimal because women are experiencing nausea and vomiting and might not be eating in the same way they usually would. So optimising our nutrition before that point and making sure our body is full of stores of nutrition is really fantastic to stop us ending up with deficiencies as we progress through our pregnancy. There is also some evidence emerging that a healthy gut microbiome can reduce asthma, eczema and allergies in children. And to achieve this, it's really important we have a wide range of fruits, vegetables, legumes and grains in our diet. There are some really easy ways of doing this. So things like swapping your daily apple for a pear every other day, or instead of having orange carrots, try purple. Buying the kind of mixed pack of seeds over one type of seed, and trying kind of wild or brown, red grains of rice over your standard white grain are just some of the examples that you can do with that. But the key is a wide variety. So accumulating that in your diet is a really easy change to make that can have some potentially quite interesting outcomes. There's also some evidence emerging that omega-3 intake in the 3 months prior to conception can enhance child brain development and lead to improved cognition and IQ in later life. And we know that a balanced, nutrient-rich diet is optimal to reduce complications and prevent disease anyway, let alone in this special preconception and pregnancy period. So it's just having essential vitamins and minerals, so things like iron, vitamin D, vitamin B12, vitamin C, choline, folate, omega-3s. We could go on for hours and hours about the importance of having these vitamins and minerals in our diet. So to save you from complete information overload and to stop making your dinner any later, what I will do next week on my Instagram page, midwife_pip, I will every day be including some information about the different vitamins and minerals and sources that we can get from them, and kind of doing a bit of myth busting. So if you want some more info on that, please feel free to go and check that out next week on my Instagram page. I will, however, just touch on antioxidants, because I think it's a word that tends to be bound around in the media quite a lot and quite often used as a bit of an advertising buzzword. But the role of antioxidants is really to prevent the oxidation of our cells and therefore prevent damage to DNA. And this damage can potentially cause disease. And this includes our eggs in our DNA, ladies. So antioxidants could be quite powerful. So men's nutrition, we made you get the men involved. So it's really, really key. And men are actually quite privileged because assuming that there are no underlying issues, then sperm health can actually respond fairly quickly and positively to improve nutrition. So the life cycle of sperm is about 64 days, which makes the potential for improvement in men better than in women, because we are born at birth with all our eggs for our lifetime. And over the years, they will gradually reduce and diminish. So men are in quite a powerful position. Men should be aware that sperm are sensitive to heat, so that is why testicles hang away from the body to try and preserve the sperm and keep them nice and cool. So be careful with tight underwear or having hot laptops on laps. So that's the top tips for gents. And now I'm just going to geek out a little bit. So stay with me. I'm just going to discuss the power we have as women in relation to transgenerational epigenetics. I know that sounds really fancy, but basically epigenetics, for those who haven't heard of it, is essentially the environmental influences on genes and the ability to turn them on and turn them off like you would a light bulb. The transgenerational bit refers to how, as women, as we said, we are born with all of our eggs for life. Therefore, when our grandmothers were pregnant with our mothers, We were a tiny, tiny egg in the womb of our mother, which is completely mind-blowing. But it means that our grandmothers had an influence on our health when she was pregnant. And this, I think, just explains beautifully the power of women and how the optimisation of our health potential for our future family and generations to come is just incredible. Amazing. So just to summarise, I'm going to give you 3 top tips for optimising your preconception health. And actually these go for any health, lifestyle, dietary changes you may undertake. So number 1, base your diet around nutrient-rich foods. So I'm not saying that cake is banned for life. Life is way too short for that kind of negativity and restriction. But what I am suggesting is to make sure that processed foods, or those that are laden with added sugars and salts, are kind of kept to a minimum and they're not forming the basis of your diet. The other is to move your body. So exercise in whatever way you enjoy, keep it realistic, find what works around your lifestyle and experiment with different types of exercise until you find something that you enjoy, because we know if you enjoy it, you're far more likely to stick to it in the longer term. And the other thing to remember is that with preconception health in particular, you're in it as a team. So do it together, help support and motivate each other, because it's so much easier to make these healthy lifestyle changes together than it is on your own. So stick together and help each other out. And as we said at the beginning, I am popping a little advert onto my Instagram page. In about 8 minutes, you'll see it pop up. And the one you're looking out for, it's a beautiful looking smoothie bowl of a mango in a lovely flower shape. It was when I was experimenting with making mango fruit look beautiful back last summer. I obviously had way too much time on my hands on that day. And it says on it preconception and giveaway. All you need to do if you want to get your hands on a great little his and hers preconception checklist is comment on the post with a tag for a friend or a family member, someone you know who you think might benefit from some of this advice, and then DM me your email address and I will get that sent out to you as soon as possible. Now, the purpose of me creating the checklist was to try and encourage you to start up preconception health conversations with your loved ones. So use it as a tool. You might find that it's things you're doing already, but use it as a tool to help you guys prepare. And I hope that it helps you to have successful conceptions and also lovely healthy pregnancies for that and beyond. So have we got any questions? Sorry, I'm just having a little look. Yeah, so sorry, just from, is it Amy? Amy, your GP is a great signpost, so feel free to go to your GP and they will signpost you and do a lot of the tests for the preconception screening. Now, different areas work preconception care a little bit differently, so I can't give you specific information for your area. Your GP will be able to. Some areas have amazing preconception clinics that might be led by midwives or nurses or doctors, and they'll do the whole package for you. Other areas it will be GP led, and it might be depending on if you've got any underlying health conditions or depending on your history, specifically your fertility history, it might be that you go to see a specialist doctor. All right, so for example, diabetic mums will also be seen by a diabetic doctor and a nutritionist and things like that when planning for a pregnancy. If you've got a cardiovascular issue, we'd advise you be seen by your cardiovascular consultant as well. But I hope that kind of helps. Does that kind of answer it, Amy? Just give me a little yes or a little thumbs up if that helps. Charlotte, can't seem to get any vitamin D anywhere apart from ultra vitamin D. Is that okay to take? Charlotte, I would signpost you there to your local pharmacist or your GP or midwife healthcare provider, just so they can have a little look at the packet and just check how much vitamin D is in it for you, because depending on where you are in your journey will depend on the amount of vitamin D that we want you to be taking. But awesome that you're supplementing with vitamin D, because most of our population is deficient in it, so it's a great one to be taking prior to pregnancy. How much of a factor is alcohol consumption when trying to conceive? Great question, Antonia. I guess the big question is, how much are we drinking? We know that optimum is no alcohol, and likewise with smoking, no alcohol, no smoking. we know that that's the optimum. Some people might get away with drinking some alcohol, others might not. It's really individualised, especially depending on what other healthy lifestyle factors you're taking. What I would say is part of your preconception health and care package and check with your GP or specialist would be looking at how we can support you to either reduce or abstain from alcohol, and likewise with smoking, and referring you on to kind of smoking cessation specialists if needed. But have a little look around, Antonio, at some of the alcohol-free mocktails, things like that. There's some awesome ones now that you wouldn't even tell the difference. The other good thing about exploring kind of your alcohol-free option is there's nothing worse when you're newly pregnant and you go out with friends and everyone notices that you're the only one not drinking. So it's quite good to have that already started, then you can kind of keep suspicions down. Roughly 7 weeks. So because you're already pregnant, Charlotte, the recommendation would be to abstain from alcohol. In pregnancy, we can't experiment on pregnant women and say to some of them, you don't drink, you drink lots, and we'll see what the outcomes are. So we don't have any hard and fast evidence. So we would recommend, as a kind of precaution, is to just abstain from any alcohol consumption. Any info on prenatal hydropnosis? Nicola, just because of the specificity of your question, I would like to signpost you again to your GP who'll be able to give you some more in-depth information, kind of specific to you. But definitely something we could look at doing later on, really interesting. Anyone else before I let you go? And first we'll head over to my page so you can get your checklist and then have some dinner. Amazing. That's good, Charlotte. Good to hear. No alcohol is definitely best for pregnancy. Any other questions before I let you all lovely people head off and enjoy your Monday evening? I think we're there. So thank you so much all for tuning in. As I say, if you've got any questions, feel free to DM me and head over to my page, midwife_Pip, so that we can try and give you some more information going forwards. And also, not to forget Carla, who was meant to kindly join us this evening, so hoping that she gets well soon and that we can do another little Instagram collaboration for the future. Take care, have a good evening.